Hi, everyone. I'm Lorianne Perez, the Events and Marketing Coordinator here at the Indianapolis Propylaeum. I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us tonight for this panel discussion with the filmmakers of Fandango at the Wall. We appreciate your attendance from the comfort of your own homes as we continue to practice safe programming through social distancing. For those of you unfamiliar with us, the Indianapolis Propylaeum is a nonprofit organization dedicated to women's leadership, arts and culture, and historic preservation. Established in 1888, we strive to continue the legacy of being a space that connects and celebrates women. Our programming ranges from the Women's Enrichment Series to Carriage House concerts and everything in between. Tonight, I'm pleased to introduce Emilio, the moderator for this evening's program. Emilio Caudere is an Argentinian composer, orchestrator, and songwriter. He has an incredible bio, just like everyone here tonight. So I'll give you a little bit of a background on him because it is a really cool background. He's composed soundtracks for more than 80 film and TV projects, including 2 films nominated for Best Foreign Language Film by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. His orchestral work was performed by the Los Angeles Philharmonic at the Hollywood Bowl, and his music was performed by Argentina's National Symphony at the closing ceremony of Argentina's bicentennial. Emilio is a 2-time recipient of Argentina's Academy of Motion Pictures Award, a 2-time recipient of Argentina's Critics Award, and a Latin Grammy winner. So with that, welcome and thank you so much for moderating tonight, Emilio.
Hi, thank you for having me. And it's such a wonderful project that is Fandango at the Wall. And thank you for having me. And I'm going to introduce a little bit of what it is, the Fandango at the Wall that follows New York City maestro Arturo O'Farrill, Afro Latin Jazz Orchestra founder. Hi, Arturo. To Veracruz, Mexico, where he meets up with the masters of a 300-year-old folk music tradition called Son Jarocho, and then joins them for a historical music festival called Fandango Fronterizo that takes place simultaneously on both sides of the United States-Mexico border, around Tijuana and Southern California, transforming the world from an object that divides to one that unites. And to have them to use the power of music to deliver a message of unity and peace in such a difficult time of Byzantine leaders that want more walls and more division and all that. For me, it's an honor to be today with you guys, and it's a wonderful quest. So I'm going to introduce Kabir Seghal, Arturo O'Farrill, they're online, and Varda Bar-Kar, the director, and just get into the explaining the project and what it's all about and what is this message, how did it come together and about. And we'll start with probably with Kabir, that I would love to ask you how, since I'm a music composer and I'm in the studio all day long and thinking I'm doing music, how can we deliver this message farther and just make a difference in the world? And I feel very, very small sometimes with all the changes that are occurring in leadership in countries and the inequity and all that. And sometimes I feel, oh, there's so little I can do. And yet you did, guys, so much. So I would love to know how it started. What's the spark?
Yeah, well, Emilio, pleasure to be here. It's great to be in your company. We very much admire and respect you and have known about you for a long time. So it's a personal honor. I never knew that the Propylaeum was going to bring us together, but I love the Propylaeum even more for bringing us together. So thank you, Emilio, for your time on this afternoon for you, and thanks to the Propylaeum for having us. Yeah, so it's artists are so important to to society because we can create things. I have kind of a hybrid role. I've worked in the business world and in the music world, and what I love about the arts is you just sort of create things, and you don't have to go to a managing director to approve it or go up a bureaucracy. You can just create. And so this project really began, and Arturo can talk about this, about the moment he learned about this project. But I just want to also say that Arturo is really an artivist, an activist, an artist, and he has a long tradition of creating projects that meld, well, a political view or humanitarian view and music. And some people think they shouldn't be together. And there are purists who say, just create music for the state. But Arturo and I are simpatico because we say if we're going to create something, I put it in more crass terms. I don't want to just respond to the news. I want to drive the news cycle, and I want to create news so that we can create the world we want to see. And I know Arturo really respects this, but let me just put it this way: there's a long tradition of jazz musicians traveling the world and representing America around the world. This is Louis Armstrong, Dave Brubeck. I think Arturo is following in that tradition. So I just wanted to put him on his proper pedestal first before he explains the project. But just to put it in context, that I think Arturo is really a jazz ambassador here. But go ahead, Arturo, about how you came across this.
Well, I originally was sent an article by Karen Brooks Hopkins, who is the founding executive director of BAM. And she sent me an article about a man named Jorge Francisco Castillo, who who was a librarian, a retired librarian who had been trained as a classical guitarist, but discovered son jarocho, and into his retirement years, he decided to move to Tijuana and play son jarocho music. And he was volunteered for cleanup duty at the border, and realized it was a perfect place to have fandango, a descarga, a jam, or whatever you want to call it. And so he organized with a bunch of folks and brought musicians to meet right at the border. And it's really dramatic. Those of you who have seen the film understand this. It's incredible to see people play music across a mesh, using the very elements of oppression and division, using barbed wire, tack dogs, patrol guards. Those are the very elements that he uses to celebrate community and freedom and unity. And it freaked me out. I read this article and it freaked me out. I think I even cried. And I didn't know what to do with this. And by the way, Kabir, I have to publicly say thank you for giving my consciousness such a voice. I do believe in marrying my convictions with my art, and we've done 6 records together. And Kabir is the one who's really given me the platform where I can speak my soul. So anyway, so I saw this article, and we were dining together with our wives, and Kabir loves steak. Trying to get him to eat less steak, but he insisted on eating steak. We were at a steakhouse, and I said to him, "This is our next project." Once again, Kabir said yes when 1,000 other people would have said no. And then we started conspiring together, and we decided at first it was just going to be an album. But Kabir is a best-selling author, and he wrote a book about the relationship between the United States and Mexico over the years and the history of it. And before long, we were talking film, and so we met up with Jorge. Kabir found him in Tijuana and he went to the Fandango Fronterizo. So I soon thereafter followed and slept on Jorge's floor while he taught me about the different jaranas, or instruments that are used in son jarocho music. And before long, we met this magical human being named Varda Bar-Kar, who is an incredible filmmaker and visionary, and we invited her to join us on this journey, and I guess that's a good place to ask Varda to take over. Here's the baton.
Thank you, Arturo. Well, right at about the time that you were sleeping on Jorge's floor, I was questioning the depiction of Mexico, that was in the media, and that the current administration was proliferating, and feeling not happy about, as you mentioned, Emilio, the way immigrants were being talked about and treated. And I was feeling like, God, I really talk. And again, Amelia, you talked about doing something. I get what you're saying about feeling, like you can't, but somehow I don't listen to that voice. I have it, but as I think, what can I do? I really want to do something. I really, really want to do something about this. And I was thinking, well, maybe I can make a film that kind of speaks this alternative narrative. And then I had made my film Big Voice, which was a music film. And I was thinking, well, I really love working with music. Maybe it can be film music. And then right at that time, a fellow filmmaker said to me, sent out a note. She said, I have a friend who has a friend who's looking for someone to film a festival at the border, a music festival. And I just immediately grabbed it. That hit me so hard. It was like, lightning. And within a couple of days, I got on the phone with Kabir. We had this amazing conversation that's been ongoing ever since. And that was maybe like over 3 years ago. It was about 2.5 years ago, maybe at this point. And I could see right away that we were aligned in our vision of how we would, what this was going to be as a film. And that's how it took off.
Arturo, before the time goes to flies, and Varda as well for putting this together, let me tell you that your mom's message that you put in the film, the spark that your mom brought into your life of what should be okay, what it's in equity, what is differences, and what is good and bad just hit me like a train. So I got the message from your mom in a very, very powerful way. And the film portrays that very, very clearly. So thank you for that powerful moment. Another powerful moment is that there's violence in the all over the world. And this is the moment that you explain that if you take your jarana is the lead instrument of the son jarocho. And this guy explains that his name is
Patricio.
Patricio Hidalgo, right?
Yes.
Patricio Hidalgo. So he explains wherever you go, you have your little guitar, the jarana, and it'll bring you life and happiness, and it'll protect you like music would protect you from the violence and would put people together, and that people together, when they're having fun, they don't think about differences or inequities or anything. So there's a moment of music that we create that is there to make happiness. And that's a powerful, powerful message of the film. Such a potence of communicating something. Bravo, bravo. Really. So how did you connect this with the wall and doing everything? How did it work for the people of Son Jarocho y de Veracruz? You went to Veracruz and everybody was happy to work together. How did that come about? I think that's Varda's, right?
Yeah,
a question for you.
But of course, everybody. Yeah. Well, first of all, Jorge, who I hope he does find his way with us, he was instrumental in this. There were certain characteristics that the Son Jarocho musicians had to have. He already knew them because every year when he does the Fandango Fronterizo, the Son Jarocho masters, 1 or 2 or 3 of them will come and they will lead it.
Okay.
So yes, so that is one of the traditions of the Fandango Fronterizo. So he knew a number of them through the years already through this convention. In addition, it was Patricio Hidalgo who introduced him to Son Jarocho in the first place. And Jorge talks about that in the film, how he'd gone to this party in San Diego and met Patricio. And, that's how it all started for him. So in the making of the film and also in the recording of the album, the musicians had to be able to work with the Afro Latin Jazz Orchestra. They had to have the mastery and the dexterity, and also the philosophy of being able to collaborate in this way, with non-son jarocho musicians at a son jarocho event, a fandango. So he, took that into consideration, that they would have those capabilities. And then for the film, they needed to be able to tell unique stories. Each of them needed to be unique and distinct as a character. Like, when you're making a composition, I'm sure you think about that, the different instruments and the notes and how they all mix and how they relate to each other, and, the different tones and so forth. So it's the same with characters in the film. They are like those elements in music. They need to be able to mix in a certain way to create a certain energy and all of that. And so, we kind of talked through that, and then he started to put the list together in that way. And that's how he's the one who took Arturo and Kabir, to Veracruz to meet them.
Wonderful. So Kabir, how is the connection with the border, the U.S.-Mexico relations, and how do the authorities help with this? What is the involvement? How did that work?
It's a good question. So Jorge has a long-standing, I guess, relationship with the folks at the border. He's been doing this festival since I think 2006, 2007. So it's about 13 years. And so every year it's a little bit of a grind to get the permission to organize this Fandango Fronterizo. And I've been a part of a lot of recording sessions, starting with Arturo many years ago, and not once have I had to deal with the immigration and customs and border protection as part of a recording session. So this was a new challenge. So it was weeks before we started to record weeks before we started recording. We didn't have a visa, we didn't have the permits ready. And so if you look at the border, one side is a party, and that's Tijuana, and anyone can go. But the other side is a federal and a state park called Friendship Park. And when I first went to the Fandango Fronterizo back in I think 2017, just to check it out, I went up and I talked to some members of CBP. They were there with their military vests on, and I just talked to them. I said, how are you, and what do you think about this festival? And this guy was like, "Oh, it's great. See that guy over there with the Harana? He's my cousin." I was like, "Oh, really?" So members of the same family. One's CVP, one's an artivist playing the Harana. And it just kind of struck to me how the community is so integrated there. And of course, with the change of the administration, when Trump came in, we were concerned, and it has gotten more difficult to obtain the permits. And Jorge can tell you all these stories about they want to shut down the Fandango, and they'll say the jarochos will be one more song. So they play the song, and it goes on for 40 minutes. And the CVP members are looking at them like, oh, this is one last song. So there's all kinds of idiosyncrasies. But I should say this, Emilio, that we've been really heartened talking about the rapprochement between U.S.-Mexico relations. That the Mexican ambassador to the U.S. is from Veracruz. She saw the film, really enjoyed it. She hosted, is involved with a panel with us. She sent this to the president and first lady and secretary of culture in Mexico. So in some small way, I think we're trying to show how, we can kind of take foreign affairs into our own hands. And filmmakers, I think what people take about this movie is this is showing Mexico in a different light, the Mexican middle class. And we're not, glamorizing violence. It's just hopefully a feel-good story about culture. And I think that's what's really resonated with folks. And among the foreign policy people, we've talked to people at the State Department, and people are really taken with the message of isn't that what State Department's supposed to do? It's like bring people together, and we're trying to do it through the film. So that would be that's a little bit about the politics of it, especially.
It's very interesting because you're working with someone, I didn't recognize who that is, that explains when President Ronald Reagan, a paragon of conservatism, just goes to Berlin and talks about bringing down the wall in Berlin and freedom and all that, and he's walking down to the wall.
Yeah, that's That's Douglas Brinkley, and he is, a prominent presidential historian. I think he's written like 25 books. He edited the Reagan Diaries, and
Nice.
and he's on CNN very, very often talking about the politics. But you're right, he puts it in context, that we tried to keep the politics out of the film. It's always there, but we didn't mention Trump or whatever. But that is a sort of a political moment, because I think, and maybe Varda can talk about that, about the politics. And we haven't really talked about that Doug Brinkley moment at all, really. But I think it was really, he sort of framed it in this unique way.
But it's beautifully shot, because you're going down and there's the wall in front of you, and he's explaining, well, we're happy about someone else's wall when we have to do politics, but okay, at home we have a wall. So go ahead, Varda.
I was going to say, I mean, that's the magic of this film. It's just the synchronicity, they're just these moments that happen. You can't quite plan them. I mean, but you do need to be alert to them and move and, find them. You need to notice, oh, the sun is setting. Let's, as they're walking down, let's get behind them. Arturo split off, you go with Arturo, you stick with them, and then someone calls Arturo. I mean, all of these things happen. It's not scripted. This is happening naturally, but you kind of have to, really kind of be alerted and realize also, and capture it so that, as he's talking about the wall, you get the shot, so you see the wall behind him. But again, you do have to be alert and awake to it, but it also has to be there for the capturing. So we got really, like I always say, I think like God wanted this film to be made, somehow.
I'm assuming as a director, you do all this editing, and some things you saw like 100 or 200 times, and it's a kind of a normal thing, but they're going magically along. It's just that guy is walking down talking about politics and the wall, and then the pinky, something that touches, just connects. It's like ET, just finally we connect. We're still connected. You guys we're still connected. That's wonderful. Yes,
Arthur,
yes, we can do the pinky.
Well,
that's a funny story. We actually had a moment in the film where we couldn't bring one of the Villalobos brothers across the border because he was in the middle of visa issues. And so what turned into kind of a collaborative concert setting actually became a real example of this. And so one Villalobos on the U.S. side, one Villalobos on the Mexican side were jamming along with all these great Son Jarocho musicians. And at the end of it, the music was just fever pitch. And we just reached up to give each other a high five, but there's a mesh between our hands that we can't feel palms. But the mesh is so fine that you can actually fit just the very tip of your pinky. So I looked at Ernesto and I went, "Hi, pinky," and we gave each other high pinky through the little hole in the mesh. And so that kind of became symbolic of the film. It became symbolic of the Fandango doctrine. It became symbolic of the you can't tear human beings apart with physical separation. Our cultures, our musics, we all have the same issues. We all want to send our kids safely to school. We all want to come home at night and curl up with the people we love. We are all the same. We are human beings. And so recognizing that we are more alike than we want to admit, whatever the separation is the great, big, huge secret of culture and of life and of community and of this film. So giving somebody a high five through a little hole of the size of a dime is symbolic of the great power of humanity, which is more powerful than any fence, any ideology, any hatred, or any administration. And what I love about this movie too is that it's because we didn't tie it to this time period. It is the timeless tale of community and life. It's not about this administration. It's about the timeless reality that human beings are much bigger than buildings and walls and structures of steel.
Perfect. Oh, that's perfect. A musical question as a musician. The difference between son jarocho and Latin music, Afro Latin, I just went through the film again, and I see that it's straight. It has the same turnarounds musically, but it doesn't have the syncopation. So what can you add about that?
Well, it's interesting. I just want to tell you a funny story. I was just talking to a student of mine, a pianist, who's studying Debussy's Les Léger, and there's a lot of groupings of 4 against 3 in both hands. And she was trying to figure out how to play this stuff, and I said, "Don't do that. It's actually Afro Latin music. Listen to the 6 against 4, 3 against 2, and you'll be able to hear Debussy." And Debussy was a big fan, of course, of a very diverse series of influences for his music. So here's the thing. The layers that you hear in son jarocho music are sometimes playing in 4, sometimes in 6, sometimes in 2. And this really reflects that what is really called Afro-Mexican music, because traditionally son jarocho music has been identified as Afro-Mexican. And the reason is that there was the enslaved peoples were freely brought to Veracruz, as they were throughout the New World and Cuba, and there was a constant flow of information between Cuba and Veracruz and the rest of Latin America, Venezuelan. If you listen to joropo music, if you listen to, it's very similar. And the thing is this is the beautiful lesson of this music. It is the result of a migration of music from India to the Middle East, to the north of Spain, to the tip of Spain, to the north of Africa, to the west of Africa, to the New World, and along the way it picks up all this information that informs layered musics, like Afro-folkloric percussionism. But here's the thing. So this music, this incredible music called son jarocho, is a result of a global migration informed by thousands of sources, yet it's quintessentially Mexican. It's quintessentially Veracruz. And the message that says to me is that we don't dilute ourselves when we understand and embrace the globality of our roots, of our very blood. And so you listen to Veracruz music, and it's undeniably unique in the world. It's undeniably from that region and from those beautiful artists. But it reveals that we are all interconnected in such profound ways. That hocketing of rhythms, that each jarana plays a different rhythm, is typical of Afro-folkloric percussion, Afro-Cuban music, son montuno. There's a reason, and the declarative, declamative, improvisatory speaking, singing that goes on in both cultures, and in all cultures really of improvisation with words. That's also part of a tradition in Kuwait, and a tradition in Spain, and a tradition in Africa, and a tradition in New Orleans. And so this beautiful thing that this music reveals to us is we don't diminish ourselves or our uniqueness when we embrace the reality of how interconnected we are as a human race, as a family, as a global family.
Oh, very clear, Arturo. Very, very nice. Thank you very much. Lori, I don't know. I see a bunch of questions, so maybe you want to start some questioning from people. I see kind of a big chat there.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much so far. This has been so interesting to hear. Rose pointed out that the women providing the percussion with their dancing made her think of flamenco dancers, and I have to agree. It reminded me of that as well. Do you know if there's a connection to those two styles of dance / percussive music?
I think that's a question for Arturo, right?
Yeah, no, there is. There's a timekeeping element to the because there was no percussion in Afro-Mexican music. The enslaved peoples weren't allowed to keep their percussion, so the timekeeping element gets transferred to the dancing. But I just want to point out something that, again, I can't help feel. If you look at Galician music, if you look at Spanish music, if you look at Irish music, if you look at musics from all over the world, Greek music, there's a tradition of straight back tap dancing. It's the undeniable reality that we are so interconnected and so globally that our music and our influences are from each other. How can you possibly want to separate from that? So this tradition of straight back dancing, you'll find it throughout the planet. And it's beautiful. It's also, again, incredibly different from culture to culture, from country to nation to city to village. It's different from one city to the next in Veracruz. But the thing that's incredible, that's undeniable, is that this tradition is global. It's amazing. It's amazing to me that because the dance, I mean, dance is a whole world that I just discovered maybe 10 years ago when I started writing music with choreography, with choreographers, and you know, this is and also the patterns, the dress patterns, the way that these folks adorn themselves when they celebrate Son Jarocho music. It's all part of a beautiful fabric that connects all of us.
Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting. Absolutely. I do have this. This is a question from me. When Varda, you were talking about capturing these moments as they happen and paying attention to everything. So it's a question for Varda as well as Arturo. Um, One moment that sticks out to me was when you went off and you were standing by the ocean and the water's coming closer. I just have to ask, did they ask you to get your shoes wet, or did you just in the moment not even realize the waves were coming?
I was so emotional at that moment. I was trying to hide from the cameras because my mother had passed away, I think 3 months prior to that. And so standing in Mexico, being of Mexican, I was born in Mexico. My mother was Mexican. Just the moment was so powerful that I was just entranced and completely lost. And I had no clue that the water was coming in. And it was really bad because those are my favorite red sneakers. And I could never use them again because they got waterlogged and really began to smell. I know you didn't know that, too much information, but after that, they were completely useless.
How was that, Arturo? Because have you ever been like the central subject of a film before?
No, never.
So how was that for you? Because I try and do it in a way where you just almost forget that the camera is there, or like, you know, just not to be trepidatious with the camera, but at the same time kind of sensitive to space and energy. So I was wondering how that was for you, especially in a moment like that, having the camera so close to you, because we got right in there.
Yeah, no, I was trying hard not to cry. That's what I was trying hard not to do. But I think, yeah, but I think what I've done my whole life is realize that, because you know what, when you're on stage and you're performing in front of thousands of people, there's no way that you're going to be anonymous. You know, so a long time ago, I got used to the idea that I can't really be conscious. I speak to, for instance, if I'm speaking to an audience, I'm literally thinking of that audience as a person, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I see cameras around me, I try to pretend they're people and they're just there. They're human beings who are looking at you, and you know, and try not to be so self-aware. I mean, that's my thing. Is unexamined life is not worth living. I don't want to be that aware of my presence. I don't. You know, I want to be aware of my soul and the philosophical struggles I go through, but I prefer kind of just to be. So yeah, it was very interesting though. I often wonder that with actors. I often wonder what actors go through when they're supposedly nonchalantly walking down the street, yet they have 3 cameramen follow them, and they don't. I wouldn't know where to look, and I wouldn't know what to think or how to avoid looking like I'm aware of the camera.
Well, I think you did a marvelous job. I mean, you just
Marta, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Varda, you did a marvelous job. You have all these moments that you stay with the camera and they pour their hearts and they tell you that I'm afraid. This woman tells you, this is, no, it's not Marta, the Vega family, right?
Marta. Mm-hmm.
Marta, yeah, I was right.
Oh, no, you're talking about Wendy.
You're talking about Wendy, yeah.
Wendy. Yeah, Marta is the Vega family. And Wendy's saying, pouring her God, whether she doesn't know whether when her son goes to college or university will come back at night, and you stay with her. And you do that with all the other musicians and people in camera. When they get emotional, you stay with them. You don't shy away, and it's a perfect, and you take your time and their time. And that's the powerful thing that I was talking about that hit me. And in just, sorry, I'm using powerful too many times, and there's a guy that I don't like that uses powerful. So let's just try to
Oh,
translate that word into something else.
I
So
just,
I apologize for powerful.
no worries.
That's the message.
Well, you know what's interesting for me about that moment? You're right. I learned a long time ago, but it's funny because when you're doing documentaries, the camera, people operate the camera often, and including me in the beginning, because I shoot too. But you feel like, oh, I got to go here because I'm going to miss it. Like this, it's all, everything's happening in real time. And you feel like if you don't go over to something, if you stick with something for too long, you're going to miss something else. But looking at years ago, when I looked at footage coming in, I was like, oh my gosh, we just, we keep moving away. So I always give the direction, like always stay longer than you feel comfortable with. And then even stay longer after that. Like stay with it. It's okay. But what I really love about that moment was that, as Wendy was speaking, I was also noticing Tacho, her husband, or actually it's not her husband, but her longtime life partner,
Yeah.
behind her. And I could see he was getting upset that, oh, can you just pick her up? Oh, yeah. Sorry, we've got a dog that doesn't want to go on a walk.
It's the same timing here. I had my dog scratching my chair. It's enough of this. I need to go for a walk. So my wife is taking care of her.
So it's funny, I'm having an emotional day and so is our dog. The dog's always echoes your emotions and feelings. It's crazy. Anyway, I noticed Tacho was feeling agitated that she was so upset. But he was right there behind her, but he was out of focus. So, the moment as Wendy started to kind of collect herself, I said, let's shift to Tacho, let's see like what he's going through, because I think it's really important. I think that's part of the power of that moment is his reaction. And, again, it's kind of like the magic of the moment where it just happens that he was there and we got to see his reaction.
So I want to tell everybody, some people that didn't see the film yet, the film is produced by Quincy Jones, Carlos Santana, and Andrew Young. And I wanted to know how they get involved myself. I didn't ask that before, but I understand they want to convey this message and just make it a bigger kind of communication vessel, if we can. So,
Yeah.
Kabir, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Well, I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia, home of Coca-Cola, Delta Airlines, UPS, and a lot of great places. Um, I grew up in Atlanta, born and raised in Atlanta, and my godfather is Andrew Young. He was the mayor of Atlanta. After he was mayor of Atlanta, he came to work for my father, who ran an engineering company at the time, and we've had a many years relationship. I wrote a book with Uncle Andy many years ago, and so Andy was the ambassador to the United Nations and congressman from here, advisor to Dr. King. So we talked about this, and he was very taken by the story and very taken by the music, and he's a lover of Mahalia Jackson, all the great music from the 60s and 70s, and he believes ardently in a soundtrack for the civil rights movement was music and the gospel music and protest music. So he loved it. Him and Quincy are good friends, and Carlos Santana is all part of the same kind of community there. What one person introduces to another, and they're all very friendly towards the project, and they believe. I think for Carlos, he was really taken on the fact that, again, it was a positive visualization of Mexico, and it was like something that was, put the guitar in focus, which I'm sure he loved, and they were just sort of philosophically aligned with the message we're trying to convey here, which is that music is really about. I mean, musicians know this, right? Like, we all come from different backgrounds. If you were to ask Arturo, the members of his band, they all come from different walks of life. So musician is fundamentally, you're wired to connect with people. So I think they were very, Andy, Uncle Andy, he came to the our theatrical premiere here in Atlanta during the Atlanta Film Festival. It was great to see him here. We had a whole Fandango planned, but canceled because of the pandemic. And I'm excited to do events with our EPs when the time is right. So that's how that came to be. And well, I'll just take this moment. Just the film is, as people know, everyone hopefully got a link to watch it, but it is available on HBO and HBO Max. And I'll just take this moment here to say that Thanksgiving is around the corner. We all have, I know the Propylaeum is in the Indiana. We all have family members who are different political ideology. I do think this film works as kind of just a something you can share that sort of humanizes. It doesn't beat anyone over the head about how to think. I've sent this film to a lot of my friends who serve with me in the military, and they're, again, I don't think I change how they vote. I don't think I change how they think about maybe official immigration policy, but certainly a lot of them now know the names of people who are living in Mexico, right, and their story. So that maybe it's a micro movement, but it's a movement nonetheless. So I think that was one of the goals we were trying to do, trying to help with the production. And I'll also say, now that we're talking about production, we finished this movie. I didn't know anyone in the film space. I went to a friend at Sony Music. Sony Latin. They really loved it, and they said, let's share this with HBO. Then the executives really it happened in the matter of a week. So it was really exciting to see how the momentum kind of took off. So if you believe in something strongly enough, it's amazing how sort of one door opens and all of a sudden you're premiering on HBO.
Great job.
Wonderful. How wonderful. Varda, maybe I should ask you a little bit about the technicalities of the post-production and production, and how was that made in one shot through the years? How did you take all this equipment there? And the possibility of doing this on Zoom. I saw that you have Rafa Sardina as the sound guy, and he knows how to do these things online, I guess. They're doing a bunch of concerts online. But let's go to the first part of my question, which is all the production going back and forth from one country to the other and all that.
Okay. I just, someone asked about the dogs. Let me just say, and that's funny because they asked that question while our dog was moaning. Yes, in Mexico, we have a lot of dogs here too, actually, everywhere. I'm in Santa Monica, California.
Yeah.
People are walking their dogs, but those dogs are all on leashes. Okay. So it's not that different. I mean, the only difference is that we have our dogs on leashes. There, the dogs kind of roam about, and they are everywhere, and they're observing. And I felt that they were very much part of, the culture. They're our fellow earthlings. And yeah, and I just thought that they were everywhere we went, and I thought that they were kind of a connecting piece, and also they just, I thought helped us kind of have a sense of kind of the magic. We talked about the chinecas. Arturo talks about the chinecas, in the car. But you want to talk about?
I think a chineca just joined us. Chineca, one of the magical creatures, just joined us. How did you do that, Jorge?
Amelia's dog is there too.
How you doing?
How'd you do that, bro?
Yeah,
There's Annie. Annie.
Hola, perro.
Hola, perro.
Yeah, they were asking about the dogs, Jorge, about the dog history and how it connects. It's kind of a connecting piece throughout the film.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. There's a lot of dogs, huh?
Yeah. So, Emilio, this is Jorge, and everybody, this is Jorge. He is the founder of Fandango.
Hey, Jorge, it's all your fault.
It's all his fault.
It's all your fault.
Sorry about that, brothers.
Yeah, it happens.
It happens.
It happens. Somebody has to be blamed.
At this point, I feel a little bit responsible, but I'm going to share the responsibility with Arturo and Kabir and Varda, because otherwise we wouldn't be here.
We're all interconnected.
We're all interconnected.
Teamwork. Yeah.
So I'll quickly answer. I'll answer quickly, Emilio, so you can ask Jorge a question. Well, that was challenging. In fact, do you know that when we were, one of the times when we went to Veracruz, we flew in to Mexico City first, and we had to get a connecting flight, and it was really, really tight. And Matt Powell, who's our extraordinary cinematographer, was coming from New York City, and he had all the equipment. Now, prior to that, and it was a lot of equipment. I mean, we brought a little bit of equipment too, but he had the bulk of it. And luckily, prior to that, I had gone to the Mexican consulate here in Los Angeles, just kind of, to connect, to make friends with them. And I just thought it was important that they know about the project. And then it so happened, and I had this other motive, which is that I was trying to get some footage we'd already shot to Mexico City, and I wanted to circumvent. I wanted to be safe. I was a little bit worried about, getting it there because it's on these hard drives, and it's a little bit fragile. So while I was at the Mexican consulate, I made friends with a few people there, including someone who did end up taking it, and I had his cell phone number. Luckily, the head of cultural affairs. So when we got to Mexico City, to the airport, they would not let Matt bring the equipment in without charging him something like $10,000, which we didn't have. So immediately I pulled out my cell phone and I called the Mexican consulate here in LA. And he's head of cultural affairs. I mean, he's not about transportation, but it was my only thing we could do. And I said, Andres, we're here at the airport and we're stuck, and they won't. Will you talk to the security, airport security? And he actually did, and he actually negotiated it, and he got us our equipment. So yeah, that was one of the stories of getting the equipment into Mexico. We also, there was issues at the border, Tijuana, getting some of the large speakers and through that Rafa actually brought with him, talking about Rafa. So there were some issues in regards to, transporting some of these large pieces of equipment around. That we overcame them, but they showed up.
Well, you made the film. That's very good. That all means get to the end. Jorge, very nice to have you and to see you. And I love the inspiration about the bottle, handing you the bottle. And you've been doing this for a while. Want to let us know a little bit about it? There are some people that probably watched the film, probably didn't watch the film. What would you like to tell them about your inspiration and your spark?
Oh, well, thank you. And sorry about the trouble that I had with the internet and the Wi-Fi at home, but pleasure to be here with you guys.
For another 4 hours, don't worry.
Okay. Like a fandango.
Yeah, like a fandango, the 40-minute song.
I know. So then, I'm glad that most people have seen the film. If you haven't seen it, I really invite you to see it, because it really has a beautiful presentation of the fandango and this work that Varda put together. And we started this fandango in 2008 in Tijuana. But fandangos go back hundreds of years, 300 or more years. They're doing these festivals, and it started in Veracruz, and about 30 years ago, it started moving out of Veracruz and start traveling all over Mexico and made it to the US, and now it's in Europe also. But it's small communities, but it's definitely a community builder event and celebration. And when we started in Tijuana, it was a small group of about 50 people that we used to gather, in maybe about 30 in San Diego and another 20 or 30 in Tijuana. But we could never get together. We always had trouble getting together in one spot, because definitely because of the border, and Mexican people wouldn't have passports or visas to cross the border, and many times people in the U.S. wouldn't feel comfortable traveling to Mexico because of the we had a bad crisis of violence at that time in Tijuana, and it was not recommended by the Department of State to cross the border. And in fact, they would say, please don't let your children go, because kids like to go party from San Diego to Tijuana, because it's when you're 21, when you're 18, you're not allowed to party in the U.S., but you're allowed to party in Tijuana, because in Tijuana, you can start at 18 drinking and doing everything, So they would say, please don't let your kids go to Mexico. It's not safe. So it was difficult. And it finally got to me that we wanted to have this fandango, but we didn't know how to do it. And I mean, we thought it will happen one day, but we didn't know how. So one day I was invited to go to the beach, and it was an event to clean the beach in both sides of the border. So it was my first experience seeing these fans at the beach. I seen it all my life through them in the border of Mexico and the U.S., but never at this point. And then when I saw that, I said, wow, this is amazing. I could see people shaking hands. I was shaking hands with people on the other side of the border, exchanging bottles of water and all that. I thought this is perfect for a fandango. This is perfect. And without thinking about all the politics, all the the effects that this could have, I just thought this could be the place where we can be together. And that's, I think, what one of the beautiful things about this documentary, when it shows people on both sides of the border celebrating life, celebrating communities, celebrating the peace in two countries.
But what year was that?
2008, February the 23rd
wow. Oh,
of 2008.
Okay, so you have it in Tijuana for quite a while now.
Yes. Like 12 years, going 13 years, and it's been 12 years, 13 fandangos. We had to clarify that.
So the son jarocho comes because of you, and then you
No.
started son jarocho, or you did festivals with people from all over the place. How does Veracruz come across?
Well, son jarocho and fandangos come from Veracruz, and we start having fandangos and son jarocho in Tijuana in 2005 approximately. I myself started playing this music in San Diego in 2007, at the beginning of 2007. So it was kind of like towards the end of 2007 when I had this experience going to the beach and finally said, oh, we can have a fandango here, and that's how we started the movement. But somebody else, I mean, many people before me started playing this music at the border. I didn't bring the fandango from Veracruz. It was here already when I started playing, but I came up with the idea to have this fandango at the border.
Okay, but there was some people playing together already on those festivals from before.
Correct.
I asked before, El Güero Vega or Fernando.
Oh, yes.
They already knew each other.
Absolutely.
I see. Okay, and then they went to Tijuana together, and they're
correct.
kind of a group that knows each other.
Correct.
Lori, if you want to run more questions, I see they're increasing by the minute.
Yeah, I think that we are really close on time. So unfortunately, I think that's gotta be it for tonight. But thank you all so much for joining us, especially Emilio for moderating, Varda, Kabir, Arturo, Jorge right there at the end. Thank you so much for joining us. This was incredible. It was so amazing to hear from you incredible musicians and filmmakers. Before everybody heads off, we did want to let everyone know that a lot of our past programs from the past 8 months are now up on YouTube. You can see them on our YouTube channel by searching for Indianapolis Propylaeum or by looking on our website at the past programs tab, including last month's Swing States program with Regina Carter and John DeVersa produced by Kabir. So definitely check those out. There's a lot of great past programs. So if you're looking for something to watch after you watch Fandango at the Wall, of course, definitely check out those programs. So thank you all for joining us tonight, and we hope to see you at a future program soon. Thank you.